Hello, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and this is Central Florida Real Estate Radio with you every week. If you'd like to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to get started with the stats again today, as always, going over what's going on. Hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. Just trying to get my microphone, situated here. But looking at the stats and what happened last week is that basically there were 365 homes that sold last week, and it was up from 305 the week before. The median price was $430,000, which is down a little bit. It was at like $460,000, $470,000 or whatever last week, but the week before that it was at $420,000. So we're kind of on a roller coaster going up and down, but it's pretty stable in regards to where it's staying and everything around there. The inventory increased by only 3, which is good. And so that leaves it at 7,846 overall. Now, how that breaks down, of the 365 homes sold, 27 were under 250, 28 between 250 and 300, 95 between 300 and 400, 76 between 400 and 500, 116 between 500 and a million, and 23 over a million. Now, when you're looking at the inventory, we're at 4.96, which is 5 months, which is a normal market between 4 and 6, is what they always say. So 4.1 under 250, 3.75, 250 to 300, 4.12, 300 to 400, 5.03, 400 to 500, 5.55 between 500 and a million, and 7.72 over a million. List to ask price, though, is staying this is down a little bit this week. It's at 96.49, which it's always been about 97, 98. So down a little bit this week. 92.35 under 250, and over a million was at 92.14. But we're at our norm between all the rest of the categories, 97.78, 98.31. So again, between 250 and a million, they're right in that 97, 98% range, but under and over, usually they were at 94, now they're at 92 this week. So that's probably our biggest challenge when it comes to what's going on there. So, like I always say, everything is very local. Everything is how it all shakes down when you're looking at the whole big picture and everything. But basically, the bottom line is that, we're staying pretty consistent. Under 250 and over a million is where you can make a better offer or a lower offer, I guess. 92%, which it was at 94, but everything else is pretty close to asking a 97 or 98. So, everything is statistically, if you just look at the big stat, I just lost my microphone here. I lost my headphones is what I lost. So let me figure that out. There we go. That's back. Okay. Sorry about that. Basically, so let me go on to condos, townhomes, and villas. The sale of condos, townhomes, and villas was 102, up from 83 the week before. And the median price was at 263, which is down a little bit too, but 250 to 280 is kind of where we're at. So it's kind of a middle week on that. And the inventory there increased to 43. So when we're looking at how that all shakes down, the under 250 is obviously a lot less. Of the 102, 48 of them were under 250. So if you're in that price point, that might be a good way for you to go. Then between 250 and 300, there were only 8. Between 300 and 400, there were 25. And 400 to 500, 10. 500 to a million, 10. And 1 over a million. So when you're looking at the months of inventory, we're at 8.77. Between under 250 is at 7 months. Between 250 and 300 is 17.22 months based on what we sold this week. Only 8. Pretty crazy. And then between 300 and 400, 9.42 months, 10.89 between 400 and 500, 7.18 between 500 and a million, and over a million, there are only 4.85 months. So in the condos, there's a lot more inventory, a lot more choices, and you have to be a lot more aggressive. And that's what I tell my condo owners as well. Overall, their list to ask price overall was 96.46. It was 94.28 under 250. And then all the way across the board was at 97 or 98, plus over a million was at 93. So as you can see, it's very consistent between those prices in regards to the amount that they're getting to asking price in the price point is the same. But when you're looking at it, I mean, gosh, when you're looking at the single family homes, and we were talking about the months of inventory between 250 and 300, they were looking at 4.11, and in the condos we're at 17. Wow, it's a big difference. So when you've got to be very laser focused when you're looking at how much your home is worth and what's going on and everything like that. I know everybody would like a magic wand and just know what it is and know that's what you can get. And we do have some systems that can kind of help us do that pretty much. But basically the bottom line is that everything is extremely sensitive when it comes to what's going on with your home and everything like that. So stats are our friend. We like to look at them every week and see what's going on, and that's what they are for this particular week. All right, so I'm going to be talking now about common questions about reverse mortgages. And basically, it's a product that a lot of people wonder about and they look at and want to know what the scoop is on it. And owners age 62 and older may be eligible for a reverse mortgage for improvement projects or other plans, but they do come at a cost. Most of the time, honestly, when I've had somebody look at a reverse mortgage, they have decided against it because of the cost. But in specific circumstances, it might be the perfect situation for you. So you never want to say no without actually looking at it right. And so basically, people near retirement age are eligible for a specific type of loan they can borrow against, known as a reverse mortgage. It can be great for people 62 or older who can no longer make payments on their home or require a sum of money to use right now without wanting to sell their house. So in addition to meeting the age requirement, you must live in the property as a primary residence and certify occupancy annually to be eligible for a reverse mortgage. Also, the property must be maintained in the same condition as when the reverse mortgage was obtained. So how does it work? Basically, what they do is that it's a home equity conversion mortgage, which is the most popular type of reverse mortgage loan. It's different from a traditional mortgage. Instead of making monthly payments to bringing down the amount owed on the loan, a reverse mortgage features no more monthly payments. Rather, the interest and fees are added to the loan balance each month, and the balance grows, and the loan is repaid when the borrower is no longer lives in the home. So basically, the situation with it is that if you no longer live there, then the property has to be sold or the reverse mortgage has to be solved. So depending on your age depends on the percent that you can have of the reverse mortgage. For example, if you're 80 and they think that you're not going to live as long as a 62-year-old, you're going to be able to take out more of your home's value on that reverse mortgage than you can at 62. Basically, the HECM, which is one of the kinds of them that are out there, is like an FHA product that you can make payments if you want to. But if you can't make payments or you don't want to make payments that month, you don't have to. So for some people, it's kind of a good situation because it's a type of loan that if you want to make a payment, you can. If you don't want to make a payment, you don't have to. But what happens if you pass away or you're out of that property, then basically that loan has to be paid back or the home has to be refinanced. So a lot of people, find themselves in it. That I was dealing with a customer a couple of years ago that they were going through this, that their father had passed away and they'd taken over the house, and they weren't living there, but they were kind of taking their time with all the siblings to make sure that everybody got what they wanted to before they put the house on the market. And so basically what they did is that they went ahead and we did put it on the market, but the bottom line is that we had to have it sold by a certain date, or the reverse mortgage company was going to start foreclosure procedures on it, because that's just kind of what the rule is. You've got a year after the person passes away to get everything resolved, or you're in the penalty box, or you have more fees or whatever. We were able to get it done, obviously, and not have any problems. But basically, you have to look at all of the situations that are encompassed with that to know if it's the right situation for you and your family. And that's what I think is most important in anything that you do in real estate or in life, is that you look at all of the pluses and minuses, and then you make your decision accordingly. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I am your host of that, and in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So basically, I wanted to talk today how to keep moving costs down. Moving costs can be costly, but smart planning and knowing hidden fees can save money, reduce clutter, and avoid peak times and pack efficiently to cut costs. So basically, when you're looking at moving companies and how much they cost, a lot of things depend on the distance you're moving, the number of items that you have to move, and whether or not you have fragile or bulky items. So basically, when it comes down to it, we have some companies that we can recommend, but we definitely suggest that you do get bids on your property to see what it is when it comes to moving. Sometimes it comes down to that you might want to have them actually come and look at it to give you some ideas in that. I know that people are all over the map in regards to what they want done and what they will do themselves and what they want to look at. But there are some 6 hidden moving costs to be aware of. One of them is a specialty items premium, that goods that have to be handled carefully usually cost you an additional fee. This can include bulky and heavy items, but also expensive or fragile items such as antiques, statues, or glassware. For the most delicate and costly objects, you're guaranteed to hire a specialist moving company to assist. They might need to. So basically, I know a lot of people that hey, I'm taking those things in my car one at a time to make sure if it's not too far. But if you're moving across country or something like that, you might have to do that. The other thing that you might run into is temporary accommodations and storage. Sometimes the timing doesn't always work out. And so as a result of that, you have to find yourself some kind of a temporary accommodation. So that's where a lot of times the pods come into place, where you want to have them drop it off and then you load it and then they come and pick it up, because the storage of them is not necessarily as much as if they put it on a truck. I was talking to a homeowner not that long ago that they were talking about that their mover, they actually were moving during the hurricane. It was like, it ended up that the moving time that we were doing it was during the hurricane. Like, they were supposed to close the day that Helene came through. So it was quite fun, figuring that all out. But we did get everything worked out, and it worked out beautifully and all of that kind of good stuff. But one of the things that they were talking about was that a truck was going to come and pick up her stuff, and then it was going to take it to their warehouse, put it in their warehouse for a day, and then put it back on the truck because they needed to use the truck multiple times, and she wasn't going to be able to move into her new house for a couple of days. So we worked it out so that didn't need to happen. But temporary accommodations and storage might be something that you need to consider and look at. Then you get into travel costs, that if it's over a certain distance, that they might charge you for that. And then utility hookup fees. Forgetting to arrange utility connections in your new home can make it so that you can't stay there and that kind of thing. So we do make sure that you try to figure all that stuff out. And then tips. It's always good to tip your movers. After all, they've worked hard to get all of your belongings there and get them there safely. And then bridge mortgages are extremely handy if you've bought a new house but haven't sold your old one yet. Now, maybe that's something you haven't heard of, a bridge mortgage. We do have several companies that do that will allow you to close on to either have a bridge loan or to close on your new house without selling your old house. So we have all of that good stuff ready to rock and roll. But here are some tips to keep your moving costs down. Number one is don't pack too much. The more you take with you, the more it's inevitably going to cost you to move. So I was just I moved my office from one office to another within our office. I decided to change offices. Long story, but anyway, I decided, hey, why don't I do this? So I did. And I had been in my current office for 10 years. 10 years actually. Coming up January 1st would be 10 years. So 9 months and 9 years, 11 months. So basically the papers and all of the stuff that I had was crazy and a lot. And so, you just get it and then you just put it in a folder, or you put it somewhere and you think, okay, I'm done with it or whatever. And then you don't necessarily go back. Well, I don't necessarily go back, but I did have the opportunity to go through a lot of things. I didn't get through everything, but it showed me that there's so much that I need to go through. And, it's like you look up something and it was like dated in, 2014 or something. And I'm like going, okay, well, I haven't looked at this for 10 years. Don't really need it. And so it was okay to get rid of it. So that's just on the don't pack too much kind of situation. Number two is give your moving company specific details. This is extremely important because especially if you're getting bids or if you're going to be working with somebody, you want to make sure that you definitely are giving them what you need out of it and what you need to get back out of it. And that's actually going to help you to make sure that you get a good price to begin with and you don't have any surprises on the other end. This is saying don't move in summer, and that's only because summer is the most popular time to move. So I think that it just depends. I think that not moving at the end of the month is probably more important than moving during the summer, if it were me. But that's what this thing says too. And it says avoid weekend. Weekends on a weekday is typically more affordable than weekends. So it depends on who you're working with and that kind of stuff in order to get that done. Empty your pantry. The weeks leading up to a big move can be busy and stressful. It's only natural to be tempted to eat out or order takeaway. However, if you stay home and cook, you'll not only save money, but also you'll lighten up your pantry. So there you go. Number two, take care of your own packing. You can pay a moving company to help you with your packing, but it's typically an expensive extra. So you could give yourself plenty of time and up to a couple of months and continue packing yourself. Doing so also lets you eliminate the clutter and ensures that any fragile items are adequately cared for. So I know a lot of people that what they do is that they do pack a lot of the things themselves, but when it comes to the fragile things, they might have the professionals do that, or like I'd said before, if it's not that far, they might move those things independently themselves. Maximize space while packing. The fewer packing boxes you have, the lower your costs. So make the most of each and every box. Try to put smaller items inside larger ones. For example, you could stack your pots and pans. Clothes take up so much space, so you could use some of them to wrap fragile items rather than buying bubble wrap. Alternatively, you could try vacuum packing them, your clothes, to free up vast amounts of space. And that's absolutely true. And then upcycle packing supplies. There's no need to pay for packing boxes that you can easily find from cardboard boxes to use. Simply ask in shops, recycling centers, and that kind of thing to get that there. and take care of the smaller items yourself, which we've already talked about, and then ask for help. Now, one of the things that I think is pretty cool and something that you can do is that you can actually ask the like the pod people and that they actually have people that you can hire to help you load your pods. So I think that when it comes down to it, you definitely have options out there when it comes to moving. There's ways that you can save money, but I think just the old fashioned getting bids is a good thing. And then figuring what you can do, what you can have your friends do. And I was talking to somebody and they were in their 40s and they said, we used to have our friends over for pizza and we would move everything and everybody would be great with it. So, like some beer and pizza and they would be done. But they said no longer our friends are not into that anymore. And so we do have to pay people. So whatever it is, that you can find ways to make it the best and the easiest for you. And that's absolutely what we think you should do. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. This is Central Florida Real Estate Radio, and I am your host. If you'd like to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So basically, I wanted to go over today the HOA rules and stuff like that, which an HOA is a homeowners association. And I say a lot of these terms sometimes, and I try really hard to make sure that I'm not saying something that people don't know, but most people know an HOA or a homeowners association. And about 30% of the houses in the U.S. fall under a homeowners association. And I don't know what the number is in Central Florida, but I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of, I would say 70 to 80% is what it is. Most all new homes fall into a homeowners association. And I would say most homes that are built from 80s on are in homeowners associations in Central Florida. And so if you want some kind of a new house, they're hard to avoid. And a lot of people coming from other parts of the country, they're all like, I don't want a homeowners association, but I want a new house. And unless you're going to buy the land and build from scratch, then the chances are that you're going to be in a homeowners association. And many times the land that's out there, they're also in homeowners associations. And so they're just kind of the way that we live here in Central Florida. And you might wonder how they all came about or why they exist and all of that kind of thing. And I think that basically the bottom line is that when a builder came in, they wanted to make some amenities for the community. And their best way to do that was through a homeowners association. And everybody was always concerned about, hey, I don't want a bright blue house next to mine or a sunshine yellow or bright pink unless the whole neighborhood is that way. Now, if you go to Margaritaville, for example, every house is that kind of colorful, bright, shiny, tropical, I want to be there kind of house. But in many homeowners associations, they're more constricted in regards to what they have. Now, that you have to get approval in order to change the color of your house and what color it's going to be and stuff like that. And some of them are much more stringent than others, definitely. And some of them are more lenient. I know in some communities they have a pattern book and it's like this color and that's it that they have. And some of them are just all in the taupey tones and stuff like that. And, it's really interesting when you go to builders sometimes and they'll be like, well, we've got these 5 colors that you can pick your house, but you can't have this one or that one because it can't be exactly like your next door neighbor and everything, which makes sense. But when you look at the other colors, they're like off like a shade and you're like going, wow, are they really, that far off or whatever? But basically, let's look at homeowners associations. They definitely have pluses and minuses when it comes down to it. The average monthly HOA fee in the U.S. is $291 a year. Oh, no, that's a month. I'm sorry. $291 a month, and $3,500 is the average annual HOA fee, which, and the three states with the most homes under HOAs, yes, Florida is included in there. California is the highest with 4.9 million, 37% of all homes in the state. And Florida is 3.9 million, which is 45% of all in the state. And Texas is 2.1, which is 20% of the state. So maybe we're not as high as I thought when it comes to homeowners associations, but I still think in our area it's probably 70 to 80%. But the most common services provided by the homeowners association is neighborhood landscaping, security, personal landscaping in some situations, and sports and leisure amenities, for example, pools, basketball courts, tennis courts, all of those kinds of things. And the most common homeowner association violations are landscaping and related issues, design changes to the exterior, fencing complaints, and trash pickup violations. So there are rules and regulations out there for them. So when you're moving into an area, it's probably best to look and see, what they have, the covenants, conditions, and restrictions. I know that there's a specific lot that I'm thinking of right now, and it's quite rural. It's about 3 acres is that one lot. And basically it was in the covenants that they couldn't have chickens. They didn't want to have farm animals and that kind of stuff in there, but all of the homeowners in there said, hey, we want to have chickens. So they did change it that you can have chickens and I believe goats and that kind of thing in the community now because you've got enough land that you could do it. But they didn't want to have cows and that kind of stuff in there. So basically, there are different restrictions that come to it. And depending on what you want to do with the property is what you want to look at in order to make that stuff happen. So there are rules for homeowners to abide by on a day-to-day basis, covering items like landscaping standards, noise levels, parking restrictions, and pet policies. And these can be changed more easily than the covenants and conditions and restrictions. And then there are bylaws, and they provide operational guidance of how the organization is going to function, such as election rules, board member responsibilities, and meeting protocols. And so all of those things happen. So basically landscaping, mowing expectations, weed control, acceptable plants or trees, and fertilizers or pest usage. Now, one thing that I found really interesting is I went to a homeowners association meeting for one of the communities, and you had to submit your plans of what you were putting in there. And the people that were putting, the landscaper had said that they wanted to put Mexican petunias in there, and the board said that they did not allow them to put Mexican petunias in there, but they would allow them to put this other plant as a substitute. So they did that, but they further explained, which I thought was great, is that the reason that they didn't want Mexican petunias in there is because they are not native to Central Florida, and as a result of that, they grow like weeds and they will take over your whole yard. And when they said that, I was like, yeah, I can relate to that, because I had some Mexican petunias in my yard when I moved there, and they just kind of were taking over this whole area and just getting bigger and bigger. And one day I decided to take them all out, and I did, and it was a lot of hard work to do it. I'm very glad that I did, because it was like a jungle of Mexican petunias. But basically, so the rules are there, but there are reasons that they're there, and they help you through it, which is what I think the best places are and everything. So basically, they want to know what's going on with the exterior, the decorations, the vehicles and parking, pets, noise complaints, home occupancy limits. So all of these things are things that you might want to look at if you're considering moving in there. Trash pickup, rental restrictions, and then the policies of what can be used for common areas. So basically, it's really interesting, and I think that everybody needs to disclose what's going on with the homeowners association. You don't want to interpret basically what's going on. You want to find out what's going on so that you really know. And if you do all of that, then you're going to be in great shape when it comes down to it, because like I said, they're both a blessing and a curse, the way you look at it and the way that you operate within it. And I think that they make it really nice and consistent, if that's the kind of neighborhood that you want, which most people do, and that's why they do exist in today's market. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson. I'm your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to talk to you today about this new term that I heard, and I thought it was really interesting, and so I thought I would share it to you. And it talks about the exurbs. And so I thought, okay, exurbs, E-X-U-R-B. And so S at the end, exurbs. And basically, so I'm like, what in the world is an exurb? Well, it comes down to that, you know, we have the city, then we have the suburbs, and now we have the exurbs, which the exurbs are even further out than the suburbs. So they're communities located beyond a city's suburbs that are attracting newcomers by blending rural charm and suburban sprawl with affordable housing. And when you look at Central Florida, our exurbs definitely exist here. And like some would say that our exurbs go from, you know, Orlando to Tampa, that whole way in between, all along 4 and in between all of that stuff. And then I would say all along 4 to the north, that would go like from Sanford all the way to Daytona, and everywhere in between. So basically, if you take from Daytona to Tampa and everywhere in between, you know, you've got Orlando and all of our suburbs and exurbs. And although, you know, we've got plenty of cities that we know on the coast, like New Smyrna and basically Cocoa and Titusville and all of those things, you know, Palm Bay, all that stuff is in there as well. But basically, you know, when you're looking at it, I found it very interesting that there is this thing called the exurbs. Now, what has happened and is changing, you know, with the pandemic, a lot of people had to work from home or got to work from home, depending on how you look at it. And then when everybody started coming back to work, a lot of people didn't come back to work every day. And so if they did only had to come into the office maybe a couple of days a week, then living far out wasn't really a big deal, because it wasn't something you had to do 5 days a week. Maybe it's something you only had to do 2 or 3. Now, companies are getting more and more stringent on wanting people to come back to work on a daily basis and not do that. So it may not be as attractive. For example, this is talking about an example of an exurb that is 45 miles away, one way from downtown, from where the people are going to. So that's a 90-mile-a-day drive. But I do know that there are quite a few people that do that we sell houses to, that want to go out there further to get more house for the money. And then they kind of, you know, develop their life around that area and everything. And sometimes they go ahead and they actually then would find another job closer to where they are moving to. I had a client that I was working with a few years ago, and they wanted to move to Ocala because they wanted to get away from all of this. And we found them a place over there, and she was just hopping on the turnpike and going to work, you know, basically right off of the turnpike. It was right off of Orange Blossom and the turnpike right there where she worked. So it was, you know, 45 or 50 miles or something like that. But she said it really wasn't that bad time-wise. It was about an hour, which it was taking her 30 minutes to get there from where she lived in Buenaventura Lakes, you know, in Kissimmee, to get there before. So she was like, you know, it's double the time, yeah, but to have the lifestyle that they got an acre out there, and they had, it was kind of like more wild out there, and I should probably go check it out now and see if it still is, because probably that urban sprawl has gotten to them out there. But they did have an acre, so they had a nice property and everything out there, and they got a pool, and they were just really happy being where they were. And so basically, when it comes down to it, that might be something that you hear more of. I had never heard of this term before, so I thought I would introduce you to it, that the new term is exurbs, that is beyond the suburbs, that does combine rural charm and suburban sprawl with affordable housing. And I think that that's what people look at, right? I mean, it comes down a lot of times to the pocketbook and what you've got and what you can do there. And so they want to make the most of everything. And so that's what they're going to do, is do that. And they would rather, have the lifestyle that they want. And the biggest thing that happens probably to most people, I would say, is if they're not close enough to the people that they have relationships with outside of their own their own family that live with them. So if it's parents, if it's siblings, if it's people they go to church with, if it's groups, if it's communities, all that kind of stuff, that's the thing that really gets them back to where they came from. And that would be people that are moving from out of town or whatever as well, that sometimes they get here and decide that, they'd rather go back. And so basically, I think I always say it's about the 2-year test. If they make it beyond 2 years, they're going to stay, and usually is a good sign of it. But if they're here less than 2 years, then sometimes they don't. So basically, that's what I've found when it comes to that particular situation in the exurbs, suburbs, or anybody that's moving here from another area to a new area. So now I'm going to talk to you about the House of the Week, and this is a new property that's coming on the market. We've actually got a few of them coming on this week, but the one I'm going to talk about today is one that is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath pool home that is in Kissimmee. It actually is in a neighborhood that you can use for short-term rental, or you can use it for long-term or whatever. The current owner has used it as a second home, and they haven't rented it out. But so as a result of that, they are willing to leave the furniture if somebody does want to rent it out as a short-term rental, because it is in a community that you can do that. Now, those communities that are like that, those are the ones that came in, and I think the house was built in about 2004 or 5, somewhere in there. So the houses that are built in that time frame in the late 90s, early 2000s, basically, they're in those communities that they are our homeowners associations and stuff, but it's not a really heavy homeowners association. I want to say it's in the neighborhood of less than 1,000 for the year, and probably I think it was about 500. But basically, when it comes down to it, these communities and the houses in here give you the most choices as a homeowner. Like I said, you can live in it. You can rent it out short term. You can rent it out long term. So you have a myriad of options when it comes to that. And I think that that's really good if you're, in a pickle, or you're trying to figure out, where you're going or what you're doing next or whatever. It gives you a lot of options. And so I think that that's a great opportunity there, with homes in this area. In some of the newer, short-term rental communities, especially in Osceola County and some in some other counties as well. But they are strictly short-term rental. You cannot live in them more than, I think it's 60 days a year is what it is. There is no school tax on it, but you cannot have anybody there that's going to school. So you're really limited in regards to what you can do, with those properties. They are strictly for renting them out. And then there's some properties that you can't do short-term rental in for sure, and that you have pretty heavy restrictions and that kind of thing as well. So it really makes sense that you find properties that are going to match what you're trying to do with that property. If you want to rent it out, or if you want to stay in it yourself, or whatever you want to do, you want to be able to make sure that you have the options that you can do what you want to do with it. And that's what I like to do, is to make sure that all of that great stuff happens. So it's the house of the week that we've got. And if you have more interest in it, just give us a call and we'll get you all of the details. It's going to be for sale in the low 400s. Like I said, it does have a pool. It has a pool heater, all set up to do short-term rental if you'd like to, or move in. And if you don't want the furniture, that can go out of there as well. So lots of opportunities and options on that property. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will talk to you next week. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving, great Black Friday, and look forward to a